All right, so this is the midterm learning guide for our first semester. And we kind of wanted to just do a quick overview of this so that you can understand what it's meant to share with you and how you can use it to better prepare for your midterm. So what you're going to see listed, and you have a printout of this that you can take home with you. You have the learning objectives for our midterm exam, which covers units 1 through 3. And what it lists out is each learning objective that's going to be tested. So we're going to look at these unit by unit and let you understand what things will be tested and a couple of things that are conspicuously not on here and which should not be tested on the midterm. So as we go through Unit 1, we'll see some objectives that might or might not look familiar to you. These sort of run consecutive, like the way we went through our explorations. So Unit 1, we're going to start with things we did at the beginning, use multiple representations to identify functions and justify what defines a function. If you want to be able to see what does that mean as it relates to you, we can go to our Unit 1 agenda. And then you're going to see that description right here. So we have all our learning goals listed. And you can see what day we did it and what were the explorations and assignments that were associated. So this is a good place to start as you're going through here. So when we're looking at these learning objectives, we can see different things, determine function values and inverse values, increasing, decreasing intervals, etc. So I'm not going to read them all to you, but what I do want to note is as we go through Unit 1, the thing that jumps out and that I see that is not listed on Unit 1 that is in the content we covered in class is we covered piecewise functions in class. So that was one of the last things that we did where we had to write a piecewise function given a graph or given a real world scenario, or we had to graph them. When you look at the learning objectives, that is not on here. So that's a piece of content that UT is saying they're not going to test on the midterm. So when you're going to study, you don't want to spend any effort studying something that is not going to be tested. Okay, so let's take a quick look at Unit 2. Same way, you can kind of go through line by line, although these objectives are not going to be word for word what you see on our agenda. And sometimes they're sort of like a summary for multiple objectives. But in looking through these, we've identified that on Unit 2, it looks like the things that are missing are there are no inverse matrices where we have to find the inverse of a matrix by hand. So when we get down here, we have all of our stuff about transformations of functions, quadratics, all things quadratics, roots, intercepts, vertex, etc. in all forms. And then everything about conic sections, all of the conic sections we learned, circles, ellipse, hyperbola, parabola. And then so you have to be able to do all the algebra for those, graph them, identify key features, and understand that locus definition. And then use matrices to model conics from a given from given points, but we would not be using those actual matrices. We wouldn't have to find anything by hand, and we won't have a calculator. So the only thing they could ask you to do related to that is set up your matrix equation. So yes, it looks like we don't have any inverses of matrices by hand. And then the other thing that we don't see on here that was something that was tested on the Unit 2 test was conic sections. Let's go to Unit 2. Applications. And when you hear applications, aka word problems. So real world applications for conics, that's when we had all those different types of word problems. And so I don't see anything listed on here about conics applications. So it looks like you shouldn't expect to see any word problems related to like flashlights or receiver dishes or things like that that we had seen in the quizzes prior. And then when we look at Unit 3, this was our log and exponential unit. And so we see all the basics, simplify and evaluate logs and exponentials with our properties, expand and condense, etc. So we can kind of look through these. But again, instead of reading all the things that are here, the things that we notice that aren't here are there is no logistic growth. So when we talked in our most recent unit about logistic growth, that was the one where we had sort of that carrying capacity. And so over here, we did have logistic functions, things like that, and we don't have that on our learning guide. The other thing that's missing is determine exponential equations from a set of points. That's not listed on our learning objectives for the midterm. So that should be something that you shouldn't have to do where you're given 2 points and you had to kind of identify what the A and the B value were. Okay, so as we're looking at this, you kind of want to think about what are your goals for your midterm exam. Remember, it does replace your lowest of your Unit 1, 2, or 3 test grades. And so that can be a great help for you, and that's true on the high school and the college side. So of those 4 tests, essentially your lowest grade of those 4 will be dropped. So this is a great chance if you had, something go wrong in one of the earlier tests, Unit 1, Unit 2, or when we get our Unit 3 grades back, Unit 3, this can replace that. So it's a great incentive for you to go ahead and do your best on this test. A couple things to keep in mind. It is only 45 minutes. It is multiple choice / free response, or like drop down menus, things like that. So it's going to look like part 1 of any unit exam that we've seen. And it typically has between 10 and 13 questions. So they can really only cover so much content in that amount of time. And so when you're starting to study, good resources for you are going to be your Unit 1 and Unit 2 exams, which are already available to you in the college course. So I can't show you a screenshot of what that looks like because I don't have access to student version of Canvas. But if you go to the college course and you click on grades, you should be able to look over your test results for Unit 1 and Unit 2. For Unit 3, you're not going to have those access to those tests before the final or the midterm exam. However, we will be sharing out with you as soon as the data is available by email. You'll get a personalized sort of report on how you did on your Unit 3 exam. And this is sort of a sample of what that's going to look like. So it'll tell you what the exam is. It'll list out every learning objective. And it'll tell you how many points you could have gotten and how many points you did get. And so as you look at that, it'll have different topics, different points. What did you get? Sometimes there's topics that they don't really test directly, so you might see not tested on there. And as you're looking at this gives you an idea where to focus. So like this student in particular didn't need help with this sort of learning objective. They don't need to study that any further. They're pretty good on evaluating exponentials and simplifying and evaluating log expressions. But when they look at some other things, they go, okay, well, I struggled a tiny bit on the transformations. Or they can look at other places down here where they lost like 4 points and then 6 points here on solving a log or exponential equation using their inverse relationship. So this isn't as great as being able to actually see the tests, but it does give you an idea where to focus your efforts for Unit 3. And then if you see this FR next to it, that's because that was a free response question, whereas all the other ones that don't have that are from the multiple choice part, the first part of the test. So that'll give you an idea of how your grade came out, and it'll give you an idea where to start your Unit 3 testing. And just keep in mind all the resources that are available to you. You have our class notebook, you have your own explorations. You're welcome to come into tutoring anytime to help prepare yourself for this midterm exam. And don't forget that over break can be a great time to get ready for that. Just keep in mind, we're not going to dedicate any class time to midterm review because everybody has a different thing they need to focus on. And so because you have all this tailored information about what you need and where you excelled and where you struggled, you are going to have to allocate those efforts to the places that you see fit that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of studying and preparing. So keep in mind, you're going to have this learning objective sheet, and it's a great idea to do what they ask you to do on here, which is sort of like rate your confidence, talk about your prior exam performance, maybe try and predict or create a question. And this is a great way to get prepared for a midterm exam that can do a wonderful thing for your high school and your college grade.